All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Kakadash, and the Heavenly Father. True name is Yahweh, in His only begotten Son, Bahashem, in the name of Hamashiach Yahweh. Those are the true names in the ancient Paleo Hebrew, the Lashon Badashim tongue. And I say Barakatham to the elders and apostles, Wa'akim, Wa'akwaf, and I say Shalom. And this is a sit down lesson of this recent news article from thediplomatic.com. And as we've been seeing, I would say like what was like 2 months ago or like a month ago from last December or November, if I'm not mistaken, because you've been having a cross-border clash between the borders of Afghan and Tajikistan. I just want to add a side note to that. And this is a news article, as I mentioned again, from the Diplomatic, published by Kalobandin Novar, if I pronounced the name right, February 2nd, 2026. It reads, it says, the CSTO sends weapons to Tajikistan to secure border of Afghan border. The decision to arm Tajikistan border troops comes after months of cross-border attacks, but the CSTO track's record gives little reason for confidence. It says the Collective Security Treaty Organization is finalizing contracts to supply weapons and military equipment to Tajikistan's border troops as part of a program to shore up country's 1,344 kilometers border. It says with Afghanistan, the CSTO Secretary General Talabiti Mastavkov confirmed in late January interview that member states are currently identifying suppliers and negotiating the terms of delivery. The decisions to launch the program was by the CSTO leaders as their November 2024 summit in Astana. But the work on the border reinforcements plans itself dates back 2013. The program gained new resurgence after a series of cross-border attacks in late 2025. On November 26, a drone and a small arms attack launched from Afghanis Bakwa Yanhan Providence unalive 3 Chinese workers at a gold mining compound in Tajikistan and Kalitayong region. 4 days later, a gunman crossed into Tajikistan and unalived 3 Chinese more nationals working for the state-owned China Road and the Bridge Cooperation in the Darvalavas district. The attacks wounded 5 others and prompted China's embassy in Dashlabi and order an evacuation of the Chinese personnel from the border region. Work on a major section of the Dashrubali, if I pronounced that right, China's highway was suspended. Shortly after that, the Tajik authorities have blamed the Pacific armed groups. Analysts pointed to the Islamic State of the Khalid province as a most likely perpetrator. The violence continued into 2026. On January 29th, the Taza border forces unalived 3 suspected drug smugglers who have crossed from Afghan's Chakalakar province, and 2 others fled back across the border. The Talajai authorities reported seizing weapons and ammunition and 73 packages of narcotics, including hashish and the opportunity during the operation. And against that backdrop, Masadou Kov describes the weapons deliveries from the CSTO as a priority task for the organizations through the exact timeline of the delivery has not been disclosed. And it says the CSTO and a Russian-led military alliance comprising Russia, Belarus, and Kazakhstan, Pakistan, Tajikistan, and Armenia was established in 2002 as a NATO collective defense bloc modeled loosely on NATO. Its founded members have signed a original collective security treaty back in 1992, just months after the Soviet Union was dissolved. It says that for the first 2 decades, the CSTO was largely dormant in terms of actual military deployments. In its one significant test came in January 2022 when it deployed roughly 2,500 troops to Kazakhstan after President Kalshimin Jamar Kaligovic, if I pronounce his name right, requested a census during the widespread process of fuel price hikes. And it says the two intervention lasted less than 2 weeks and was widely interpreted as a political maneuver to consolidate the Takolov's hold on power, and rather than a general security operation. Armenia notable boycott of the CSTO's November 2024 Astana summit, reflecting its deep dissatisfaction with the organization after the CSTO refused to intervene and during Azerbaijan attacks on Armenian-controlled Nagorno-Karabakh. Tajikistan shares a Central Asian long border with Afghanistan. It says, and the security situation along the frontier has deteriorated steadily since the Taliban's return to power in August of 2021, which was like 5 years ago. Tajikistan was the most vocal Central Asia opponent of the Taliban's takeover, initially providing support for Afghan resistance forces. That stance has since the softening as the Taliban consolidated control, but the border remains perilous and prone to militant incursions, drug trafficking, and cross-border raids. It says the stacks extended well beyond Tajikistan. Chinese firms dominating of Tajikistan gold sectors and accounting for 84% of the national output. And Beijing is the country's largest creditor. The November attacks on the Chinese workers marks the second set of deadly incidents targeting Chinese nationals on the border within a year. It says the CSTO noted that late in December 2025 that Tajikistan had not formally invoked any requests for assistance in the connections with the November attacks. The weapons program, Dushanbe, insists in a pre-existing arrangement rather than an emergency response. Whether the CSTO weapons deliveries actually militarized and whether they arrive in time to matter remains an open question. The organization took over a decade to finalize a plan. The border is long, mountainous, and difficult to control. Even the adequate equipment and the CSCO's Institute track record from this year in action to the largely symbolized Kazakhstan deployment offers little reasons to expect this time will be different. It's the book of it's the book of Matthew, chapter 24, and verse 7. For nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, as we've seen the latest incidents that have been occurring last November all the way into December with those attacks between the borders of Tajikistan and Afghanistan. With those Chinese foreign workers was unallied by those coalition groups, arms groups, importing, exporting substance into the borders of Tajikistan and Afghanistan. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, which goes to Ethnos, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. And this is of the book of Luke 21 in verse 25. And there shall be signs in the sun and the stars upon the earth, distress of nations, with perplexity was born. Right, so we're seeing the distress of nations with perplexity was born. And this is the book of Second Ezra. It's the book of Second Ezra, chapter 9 and verse 3. Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes, uproars people world. Right, so we're going to be seeing an increase in earthquakes and the uproars people world with those recent cross-border conflicts that's been taking place between the borders of Tajikistan and Afghan. Second Ezra 15 and verse 15. For the sword of discretion draweth nigh, and one people should stand up and fight against no swords in hands. Right, and we know the modern sword's weapon. Verse 16. For there should be sedition among men, right, cross-border conflicts between the borders of Afghan and Tajikistan. For there should be sedition among men, invading one another. They should never go out their kings or their princes, and the course of action to stand in power. So with that, hopefully this sit down lesson was edifying of this recent news article as we as with those recent tensions been heating up from late November all the way into December of last year with those recent attacks took place. As it says, the CSTO sends weapons into Tajikistan to secure border, Afghan border. The decision to arm Tajikistan border comes after months of cross-border attacks, but the CSTO's track record gives a little reason for confidence. So with that, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh Hashem, Yahweh Shai Hashem Kakadash, and the Heavenly Father. True name is Yahweh, and His only begotten Son Hashem. In the name of Hamashiach, Yahweh Shai. Those are the true names in the ancient Paleo Hebrew, the Lashon Kodash, the Holy Tongue. And I say Barak Thumb to the elders and apostles while I came to Akwa. Until next time, I would say Shalom.